Hey guys, today we're making this super cute little tank top together. It's a fun and easy project, perfect if you're just starting out or want something quick to sew. If you've never worked with stretch fabric before, don't worry, I'll walk you through some simple tips so you'll get it right the first time. This top comes in two versions, sleeveless or with cute cap sleeves, and it honestly goes with almost anything. Plus, it's super simple, just two main pattern pieces, a few seams, and no closures or anything complicated. You can grab the pattern I'm using from the link in the description box below. So for today's tutorial, I'm using a simple cotton jersey with about 65% stretch, which is just perfect for this pattern. Now if you're wondering what that percentage means, it's called the stretch percentage. Basically, it tells you how much your fabric can stretch, and it's super handy because some patterns need a certain amount of stretch, so knowing this helps a lot. I actually have a free little template to help you calculate stretch percentage if you need it. I'll leave the link in the description box below for you to download. So let's start with the back piece. We're going to finish the neckline and the armholes. If you're making the version with sleeves, go ahead and skip the armholes for now. Grab your binding bands, one for the neckline and two for the armholes. Fold each of them in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, and give them a good press. Next, put your bindings on the right side of the back piece. Match all the notches together and make sure the raw edges are aligned. You'll probably notice that the binding bands are just a little shorter than your neckline or armhole, and that's totally intentional. It helps the finished edge sit snug and smooth around the curves. I like using clips instead of pins when working with jersey. They don't leave marks and can hold multiple layers really well, which is super helpful for knits. Okay, let's head to the sewing machine. We're going to sew these on with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Make sure you're using a ballpoint needle, which is a must for stretch fabrics. Once that's done, flip the binding toward the seam allowance and understitch it. So basically, sew about 2 millimeters from the seam line. This helps the seam stay neatly rolled inside. And here's how it looks nice and clean. To reduce bulk, trim the seam allowance close to your understitch, but be careful not to cut into the binding itself. Now fold the binding toward the wrong side of the fabric. It will naturally roll in, hiding the first seam and understitch completely from the right side. Place the wrong side facing up on your sewing table and stitch them down at about 1 centimeter from the edge. And this is how the binding looks on the right side and wrong side. Alright, now for those of you making the sleeve version, let's prep our sleeves before attaching them. It's a bit odd in order, but first, we'll finish the sleeve hemline. I'm serging the raw edge. If you don't have a serger, no problem. A simple zigzag stitch along the edge will do the job. Then folding it to the wrong side by about 1.5 centimeters and giving it a press to create a crisp crease. Then sew the hem using your favorite stretch stitch. It can be zigzag, lightning stitch, whatever you prefer. Personally, I love using a twin needle for hemming jersey. It gives that nice professional finish you see in store-bought ready to wear, and it's actually not complicated. Just pop in your second spool, thread it the same way as usual, and select the double stitch mode. Always sew from the right side with the twin needle. You'll get two parallel lines on top and a neat little zigzag on the underside that allows the fabric to stretch naturally. Once the sleeves are hemmed, we can attach them to the back piece. You'll see some notches on the pattern that mark where the sleeve starts and ends on the armhole. Match those up carefully, right sides together. Remember, sleeves aren't symmetrical, so double check that you're attaching the correct one to the front and back sides of the armhole. Pin them in place, and we're ready to sew. After sewing, go ahead and serge all around the armhole. When you press the seam, press it toward the bodice. Then at the end of the armhole, both in the front and back, simply fold the edge toward the wrong side and stitch it about 0.7 centimeters. I like to use the twin needle again here to keep everything cohesive, but feel free to use whatever stretch stitch you prefer. And that's how we attach the sleeve to the bodice for the sleeve version. Now, from here on out, the process is the same for both versions. So let's go back to the sleeveless version and move on to the front piece. Because my fabric has quite a bit of stretch along the cross grain, which is also the direction of the top edge, so I'm going to use that double-sided tape to stabilize this seam first. I want to make sure that seam doesn't stretch out, so it gives a bit more support and coverage. Just stick it between the right side of the front edge and the binding band. You'll immediately feel it stop the fabric from stretching. Now we'll sew them together with a 1 cm seam allowance. Then flip and understitch the binding just like we did before. Trim off the extra seam allowance to reduce bulk. Let's compare this with a sample I've sewn without using double-sided tape. You can see how the seam has stretched and turned a bit wavy. Next, fold the binding toward the wrong side and go ahead, stitch it down at 1 cm from the edge. If your iron has a steam function, it will help dissolve the tape, and your seam will bounce right back to its natural stretch. And we are ready for the next step, sewing the side seams. Alright, take your back piece and place it with the right side facing up. We're going to position the 2 shoulder straps right at the notches along the side seams, just like this. Now grab your front piece and place it on top of the back piece so the right sides are facing each other. You'll notice the front panel is actually a bit narrower than the back, and that's completely intentional, so don't worry. This little difference in width helps the straps sit nicely on your shoulders without being pushed out by your bust volume. Align the side seams carefully. Once everything's lined up, we'll sew them up with a 1 cm seam allowance. After that, go ahead and serge the seam allowance to clean up the edges. I wasn't kidding when I said this top is a quick project. Even though the design looks a bit tricky, we're already at the final step, hemming. Just like we did for the sleeve hem earlier, start by serging the bottom edge, then fold it to the wrong side by 2 cm. Give it a good press to set the crease, and then sew it down at 1.5 cm seam allowance using your favorite stretch stitch. I'm using the twin needle again here, just to keep everything consistent. And that's it, we're done. It's such a satisfying project. You get to practice sewing with stretch fabric and end up with a cool, modern basic top that you can totally finish in an afternoon. Personally, I'm obsessed with this overlapping detail. It's simple, modern, and so cheap. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you decide to make this top, please tag me at Lizzie Design Studio. I absolutely love seeing your creations and how you style them. That's it for today's video. Happy sewing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!